Well, welcome to the Dallas Film Podcast. Brought to you by Southside Studios Dallas. Southside Studios are brand new sound stages in Dallas, just off downtown. They're freshly remodeled, spent millions of dollars putting these things together. So, anybody that wants to come shoot at Southside Studios, we'd look forward to having you there. Three beautiful, large sound stages ranging from 10,000 to 21,000 square feet and all the amenities you can ask for. So, that's our little pitch for Southside Studios Dallas right here on the Dallas Film Podcast. Well, super excited today to have a Dallas-based director that is doing quite a few things around the Dallas area, and so Des Donahue. I don't know if you and I haven't had a chance to meet yet at a variety of the different events. I think maybe did we meet at Texas Theater at like one of the things we did there in the past? I feel like we did.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Okay, good. I lose track. Like, when there's 100 people in a room and you're talking to everybody, kind of bouncing around. Sometimes I forget.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Busy man.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on the Dallas Film Podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me, man. This is an honor to be here, and I'm glad to be speaking with you today.
Yeah. Well, this is our 55th episode or 54th episode, something like that. We've been cranking along pretty good here, so it's exciting to kind of have this season two of the podcast, rolling along. And so I think you are our third episode or so, right into season two. So happy to have you. Well, I guess to start out, let's just talk a little bit about your background and kind of where you come from. So are you from Dallas, always been from Dallas, or where are you from originally?
Yes, I am from the Dallas area. I grew up in the Oak Cliff community, but I've lived all over Dallas. I went to school in Duncanville, and just live, from Frisco all the way to Los Colinas. So, yeah, all over the Metroplex, and it's been pretty incredible seeing the growth, seeing how much has changed, and all that's coming to the city. So, yeah, man, I'm glad to be a native here.
Yeah, when you say from Frisco to Oak Cliff to, Las Colinas, anybody else might not really, know what that means, except that Dallas is a huge area. So you're
Yes.
like, you're an hour apart. Some people those are, full drives across part of a state. But Dallas DFW is so big that how did you end up like so spread out all over the Dallas area?
Really, a lot of it was just due to work and just moving to different areas as they grew. There's so much has happened in the city that, but I've always been not only just in the film side, but I've been in business and sales and in IT. So, as the city grew and the popularity increased, I just kind of just moved all over and tried new cities, new communities, and wanted to be a part of different things as the city changed.
Well, and I guess, and I didn't even mention at the top of the podcast as we got started here, what exactly in the industry do you do? What would you claim to yourself? You're a director, a producer, a writer, an actor, all of the above.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah, actor, director, executive producer, casting director. Yeah, man, it's been a journey. But starting in film back in about 2010,
Okay.
I got a chance to work on multiple projects. I did a big film that was at the time here in Dallas. Well, really, let me back up. I got my feet wet. There was a film site where you could go to audition. It was called Short Film Texas, and that's where I went auditioned for about 10 roles, and I got all 10. Uh,
Nice.
so I realized
Wow.
this is something that I should really be doing. After my previous history in music and being noticed in a out of my music video, that's how I really got deep into it, and I realized, man, this is an industry that I've actually been interested in since I was a kid. I was that kid that as soon as I saw a karate movie with Van Damme or somebody, I was in the living room doing karate. So, kung fu all over the house. So, I just realized this is definitely something I enjoy. And, but after that, I got a chance to work on the film Carter High by a director by the name of Arthur Muhammad. And then, I was in 8 days, here in Dallas. And started reaching out outside the city, got a chance to work on Tyler Perry Studios, the Have and Have Nots. Then I also worked on Birth of a Nation with Nate Parker, shot that in Savannah, Georgia. Magnificent Seven in Louisiana, where we filmed that. And then in a NCSI Vegas, was out in in LA. So got a chance to do some things, see how so many different productions operate, and I wanted to bring that back to Dallas. So
That's great. And it's a lot of in a lot of cases when people are just starting out and trying to be an actor, instead of 10 for 10 on auditions, it's 0 for 10 to start, and you got to keep going and going and going to get that first thing. Talk a little bit about, you say music video and your music background, like that music background that you had, that led you kind of to this film path.
yeah, that's a great question because really that's where a lot of the writing came from. Uh, I wrote I wrote songs and produced music. And that was my goal was to be signed as an artist. I was communicating and talking with a label under Timbaland for some time. And I just realized that I always wanted to tell stories, even in my music writings, I was telling stories. And so it was a chemistry with bringing that into film and really being able to capture the emotion was a big deal for me and telling stories that resonate with others and that had meaning to them that were would empower and impact the world. That's really where my focus is as a writer. The things I'm writing, it definitely opens the mind and it causes people to think about the possibilities, whether it's good or bad. So it means a
Eh,
lot.
Yeah, it's good that you've got a kind of like a mission like that, like you have your focus. So when you these first 10 auditions that you tried out for, and it was called Short Film Texas, that was like the casting website.
Yeah, yeah, there was a casting
And
website.
was it for just for short films? Was it commercial work as well? Because commercial work is obviously so big in the Dallas area that that's where a lot of people just make a living, is or they can make a living, is just doing commercial stuff.
Yeah, this was actually for short films and for
Okay,
features. It would be maybe a smaller amount of features,
yeah.
but it was definitely a good way to get your feet wet if you're a brand new actor. Getting your resume and reels together.
So what were these first 10 roles that you had? So you do these 10 auditions. Did you end up doing all 10 projects, or did you not do all 10? Because sometimes, there'll be auditions out there for a project and then nothing will happen. Like the project won't even come together at all.
Good observation. Good point right there. Yeah, some actually were able to go live and really be seen, but then there was a lot that didn't make it. And
Yeah,
then some of these were student projects too, to be
sure.
honest with you, just to try to get out there. And we're doing it for the credit and for the clips. That's our big thing. So that was the thing that really got me going and building up my resume, as I was saying. But really just getting the experience, sharpening those tools. And then the biggest thing is um, doing the workshops, taking classes.
Mhm.
That is a really big part of the success that you want to be able to have and establish yourself. So,
Yeah,
um,
and I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you said all of the things you said there. So anybody that's listening or paying attention to this, so for years I would get moms and dads reaching out to me and saying, my son or daughter wants to be an actor. What should they do? I'm like, well, that's a big question, right?
yeah,
And the answer isn't that simple. And in a lot of cases, it's there's more questions that come with that. It was like, well, do they want to be an actor or do they want to be famous?
right.
Because those are two different things. You want to
Mhm.
be famous? I used to say, 10 years ago, go do reality TV. And then now I say, be an idiot on TikTok, and and you can be famous, right? But I think it's really important, talk a little bit more about, you said, classes. So, that's one of the things too that I would always tell parents or tell anybody just starting out, is like, hey, I want to be an actor. What do I do? Well, one, are you a good actor or not? And how do you become a better actor? And so, doing acting classes and working on your craft, like you said, and becoming just better at what you do. Talk a little bit about that and how important that is. And then second part of that, why it's important also to do those student projects or projects you're going to work on for free, just to get some stuff on your reel.
Yeah, the big thing for me was taking the classes because I wanted to make sure I was well prepared for anything that I would face as an actor. Being able to adjust. I'm really big on method acting. Just different point of views of approaching and reading a script, understanding uh, the full work that it goes into understanding the script, breaking it down. These are some of the things that I learned when I went to KD Studios. Also, Teresa Bell was phenomenal with a lot of work that I was getting into with her at one point, as well as now hearing about some of Nikki Dixon's work. I think it's always good to try different trainers, different classes, and to push yourself. The biggest thing is to getting out of your element of being locked in and not freeing yourself to be able to be open to receiving what all this page is saying, and and what the script is bringing to you. It's so many different ways that you can approach it, and knowing the difference between stage, television, and features, and doing theatrical work. So you need that education, you need that understanding, and there's an etiquette that comes to it too, of
Yeah.
knowing how to conduct yourself on a production.
Yep.
That's a lot of things that the city, we're moving so fast, but we have to do the work to get to that point of where we all are considered professionals, and we all are doing the professional things that the industry is needing. So that just all plays a major part to me.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you say that too, because then the other thing that a lot of times that that I would tell parents as well is do theater, because that is something that you want to be an actor in film or television or whatever it might be, but a lot of times you're not going to work. You could go a year without having a job, or 6 months, or months in between jobs. And how do you do things consistently where you're exercising those acting chops, exercising those tools, and that's by doing theater. Talk a little bit about, if you have any recommendations for people when it comes to theater, if even it's just local productions or whatever, just to be, I like to equate it to working out basically. If you want to go to the gym and you want to work out, you don't just go once and then 6 months later go one time again. You have to be continually working on it to improve.
Oh yeah, and that's a good point, because I look at acting as being an athlete, because you have to be in shape. You want to have some kind of push for how you appear on screen. Think about your brand. Brand is really huge. But regarding the theatrical, I always just say reach out to the different cities, because there's so many different theatrical organizations out there and programs that kids can be a part of to join. Some of the urban art centers. A lot of the community has those kind of things dedicated to the theatrical and to arts. So get out there, try it. It's you really got to take a leap of faith, because you never know what happens once that is done. But it's a big deal, and so yeah, you really have to sharpen yourself, focus, and practice makes perfect. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I think, what you said about the professionalism of being on set. I've been on productions before where actors who are essentially nobodies, right? Where they're just, starting out, they think that everything revolves around them because they're the lead in this little short, or super indie micro budget feature or whatever it is. And then I've been on productions where they're big productions where number one or number two on the call sheet, they are quality people. And I think the thing that they learn, and when I say number one or number two on the call sheet, what that means for people that are listening is, when you get that call sheet every day that says what the schedule is, where you're shooting, where you need to be, your number one, number two, those are your leads, your stars, right? So and so is the star, they're number one. So and so is the second, they're number two. So you're number one or two on the call sheet. The way that they approach people and the way that they treat the crew, I think a lot of times it doesn't matter, even if they're being fake about it, they are nice, and they are friendly, and they're professional, and they're buying ice cream one day for everybody on set or whatever it might be, because they know that everybody's looking at them. They're setting the tone for the attitude for the shoot. And if they're going to be a jerk, then that sets the tone for everybody else on the crew for the shoot as well.
That is very true. Very true. Yeah, and it's something to think about. My thing always, been around so many different environments, man. From here, LA to Atlanta, Chicago, New York. But I've always been a humble person. Being my family's from Dallas, but I'm a country boy from East Texas. So, we were just, we've always looked out for our neighbor. It was always kind of, treating people right, because it comes back to you. We are a reflection of what we put out into the universe. So, it really means a big deal to have that good spirit when you come onto a production, because what I call is we're all in the trenches. We're all here for a purpose, to have a solid outcome. And I'm looking at it from a business perspective as well too. Even if it's not my production when I was an actor, this is all business here. We want to make sure we have something that transcends, that gets notoriety, gets noticed, and people are craving to get more of it. So that means a lot to have that reputation, and again to have that brand.
Yeah, and even if you're, number 10 on the call sheet, if people
Mhm.
like working with you
Mhm.
and they think you're a good person, they'll call you up the next time, and then you move up to number 5, and then you're number 3, and you just never know what relationships you're going to build on set and who you're working with that could turn into something else.
And I'm gonna be honest with that. That I had featured roles in Atlanta, to being able to be in that industry, starting out, and that was I was the first one there and the last one to leave. That's how I got to know all the crew people, the casting directors, everyone, on those productions in Atlanta. And so my name started to travel and people knew I was dependable. They knew I was that go-to guy. So that means a lot. People are always paying attention.
Oh yeah.
Just know that, and people are always talking. So your reputation is everything. So definitely protect that, and be dedicated and be honest
And
about.
how did the progression go for you? You're starting out in Dallas, you're trying out for student films and short films, you're working for free on these projects, and then 2 days later you're on a Tyler Perry shoot. It just where it's super easy like that, right? That's how it always works.
In no way near. Yeah, a lot of sweat equity. I mean, I had times that I was trying to save money in Atlanta just because I had to go from one set to another set. I've walked on highways before, man. I've slept in my car because of the long hours. These are a lot of stories that people don't really know of a lot of actors go through. We hear about some of them, but yeah, it's a serious deal, especially when you're a full-time actor. You're really going through a lot. And you learn about money, saving money just to get from one gig to the next. And being able to work on those productions, it means so much because of what you sacrificed. So it's a
Yeah,
whole.
and so talk a little bit about that. So, you're in Dallas, 2010, you're just getting started out. What's that first production that you're doing, whether it's Atlanta or Louisiana or somewhere else? How does that come around? And then is it one of those scenarios where, hey, we really like you for this role, but we're hiring locals only, so we can't pay for a hotel room for you, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
you're either paying for your own hotel room
mhm.
and you're breaking even. You're not really making any money on the shoot because whatever you're getting paid is going to pay for your hotel room and whatever else, and you're just doing it so you can break even to get that credit, or you're sleeping in your car. Talk a little bit about that. What's that first thing? What's that like? And then also the experience of, because I know how these productions work. It's like, hey, we're hiring locals only. If you want to come, you can come, but you got to pay your own travel, pay your own way to get here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a hustler. I'm a '80s baby, man. So so I'm used to just, grinding hard. I would say when I had a featured role in Vampire Diaries in Atlanta, and we were filming in around Decatur, Georgia, which I don't know if anyone knows about it. It can be kind of rough. Um, and I was walking to a hotel. I just Googled, well, looked on my phone for a hotel and I was walking there. And one of the producers drove by and he's like, "Hey man, where you going? It's the middle of nowhere, everyone is gone." And I was like, I'm just trying to save money because no one's, Ubering or lifting, in that area at that time of night. It was a pretty bad area. But he ended up picking me up and taking me to, I just said, man, just pull over here, found me a hotel, and we connected so strongly after that, just because he was like, man,
Yep.
this guy is dedicated.
Yep.
And sometimes you go through situations where you really have to go through those moments of, how bad do you want this? And that was really deep for me to be able to do that. But then I end up having other people looking out for me and telling me about other projects, and from that I was able to be in the last Ring, Ring movie that was pretty big in an airplane scene that I had, all because of people hearing about, me, and wanting to support me. So sometimes you do have to be in those positions to make those tough decisions to say, hey, I might need to, sleep in the car today, tomorrow the hotel, save the money, make sure that I'm all in the morning. I wake up early enough to start submitting to more projects, setting myself up for the next couple of days or the following weeks. It's just a lot that you start realizing, wow, I have so many capabilities that I'm able to do now because I understood the struggle. I understood the value of being well with management, time management, money management, everything that plays a big part of that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that comes across to me as we're chatting here is that when I many years ago when I used to be a district manager for retail, and so I had dozen stores, 150 employees and managers and all this other kind of stuff, and I never really cared about somebody's experience. I wanted to hire people with good attitudes because you can't teach attitude. You can teach somebody to do whatever the job is, right? But you
Mhm.
can't teach somebody attitude. And so your attitude and how you're approaching acting and your career and how you've built things up. I think that, to me, is what it sounds like has led you to more success than almost anything else.
Yes, very true. Uh, the integrity, the relentlessness, this being relentless, just going after um, with laser focus, just not allowing anything to stop me. Even though I went through a lot of different transitions after living in Austin and a couple other cities, I stayed with my mind on the target, on the focus that I have to get to where I have a solid production company and I'm writing solid films that will be huge in their own right. I think that meant a lot. Just never giving up. Um, I I'm at a place now where because of the success that I had, and a lot of these times I was working multiple jobs too, when I did, kind of get settled and get my feet wet. Even now I'm bouncing between film and technology still. Technology has been a big part of my background, especially all the success that I've had over the years now, going close to 20 years in technology. Um, that there's ways I want to fuse and fuse technology and a lot of things that's going on now with the green screen and Unreal Engine software. I have a database that I just built at my home, and it's just so much I have going on and getting prepared for a future studio that I can really take things to the next level, build out these sets that I can create my own cities and communities within,
Mhm.
and just really take it there with my goal is to get an Oscar one day in my lifetime,
Hey, I
you
mean,
know?
that's not a bad goal to have. That's about as high as you can go. So set the goals high and go for it, right?
Exactly, exactly, and I believe I have the faith and I have the willpower, so as long as there's breath in my body, I'm gonna do everything it takes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Mm,
awesome.
mm,
What we've talked a lot about your acting so far. How then and at what point did you start to work on sort of the writing, directing, producing? Because that's something that actors learn at certain points of time is, you know what, I'm sitting here waiting for somebody else to give me a job. Why don't I create my own opportunities? That's how I ended up where I'm at. I started out as an actor, back in the late 90s,
mm,
kind of
yep,
thing. And those are hard. You're playing extra roles and this and that and everything else. And then at some point it's like I'll just make my own stuff. But then I just never put myself in the stuff I made. But you kind of move forward from there. Talk about what your transition was, or not even really transition because you're still doing both. But how you approach that and where that's taken to you now.
yeah, that was one of the biggest reasons I started writing my film, was because of, you know, uh, well, actually, it was because of being in the film 8 Days that, and I wasn't caught in that movie, but I did know that human trafficking was such a big deal to me. But, so many films that come to the city. Well, we don't get those opportunities. Not enough projects and production companies were coming to the city during that time. So I said, I'm just going to write my own. I'm going
Yeah.
to write a film. It's going to be my breakout movie. It's going to be intense, about human trafficking, and I'm going to make the indigenous or the black man the hero. I'm going to make sure that I stand and do this for the community because I know my community is a big part due to the music and the movies and a lot of things that have or can affect us negatively. Let me do something positive that will leave a lasting impression on people to want to do something to be aware of human trafficking and fight against this. So it meant a lot to be able to write a film at this magnitude. I mean, I hired close to 300 people.
Wow.
There was all kind of stunts, squibbing going on. I mean, it was a very impactful film. And we're still now going to all the different festivals and doing our festival run and before while I'm working on distribution.
What's
But
the what's the name of the film? Which one is that?
this film is Mr. Gates.
That is Mr. Gates. Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so 2024, I'm looking at the IMDb right now. That's the like the release date for it. And but that's like when you had your theatric, or I'm sorry, your like your first festival kind of outing, and then you're still working on the distribution side.
That's right. That's right. First festival runs were in 2024. We had our premiere in June, and yeah, that was a big deal because I was able to do something different. I brought out the Colony Police Department, as well as the human trafficking organization by the name of It's Going to Be Okay, with Tanya Stafford Manning, and then Charlotte Wooten. She was an advocate fighting against human trafficking. So to have a panel before showing the film was huge. And to see that many months later, actually in December, I went back to the theater and I saw the County Police Department has an advertisement up now, which
Oh
was
wow.
not happening before. So I
Yeah.
was like, I made a difference. I actually did something. No matter how big or how small, there was an effect, an impression that was left there in the city.
And you
So.
shot this in where exactly? You said Colony, but Colony where?
Well, the premiere, yeah, it was in the Colony at the Grandscapes Theater, the Galaxy Theater, actually, in the
Okay.
Grandscape. So it was a really big deal to be able to do that there, to have the billboards and everything around, bringing in that premiere was really, really huge. So
And
yeah,
where did you shoot the film? Talk a little bit about the production of the film.
the film was actually shot throughout the DFW area.
Hmm.
We had several locations in DFW, and then the warehouse scene was out in Grapevine, where we shot the rescue scene as well. So yeah, big deal to have it here. I actually took it to Atlanta twice,
Nice.
and something didn't feel right. So I was like, let me just bring it back here, bring it
No,
home.
good. Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. You probably were shooting it. I just started as film commissioner January 2023. So when did you shoot this one?
I shot this one in 2022.
Okay, yeah, so
Hmm.
right before I
Hmm.
got to town there. And so you shot this all over DFW. You had 300 people working on the project. How did you finance it? That's always the big question, is like, how do you put the funding together for something like this? Because it's hard, right? Especially without, not to say that you're not a great name for your film, but you're not what's known as a marketable, name that a sales company is gonna, offer a lot of money for financing a feature.
Yes, Tony, it was hard, man. Let me just be honest with you. So I stepped away from acting after the stories I shared about
Uh-huh.
the Atlanta experience and all. I stepped away from acting for about 6 to 7 years to save my money, working in IT. Um, I worked endlessly because I had a goal. And I went to Argent Pictures. I was talking with them for a while in LA. I had a lady by the name of Jessica Minkin. She was the executive assistant, and she was fighting for me in the boardrooms, man. She was fighting so much. We were talking on a reoccurrence time month, probably within 2 weeks, and 2 weeks, yeah, every 2 weeks we were talking, and she was just, telling me how she loved the film. It had to get out there, but I spent time and I started getting depressed. I started feeling like it wasn't going to happen, and so I just locked in, man. It just worked really, really hard. Saved my money. I've spent man, I could have bought a couple houses on the amount of money I spent on this movie.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I realized, hey, do you want to get, that form of real estate, or do you want this digital real estate?
Hmm.
The digital side of it, which is the film and which is the industry I love and I want to be a part of. And the return can be so lucrative, especially if you execute it right.
Yeah.
So it meant a lot to be able to step away, to be able to accomplish this. And man, so much has happened. To even be here with you and see so many people reaching out and seeing the drive, seeing the vision, and understanding, how dedicated I am and what my production really means. With the name, even just Dundega, which stands for, my last name, Donahue, do all, give all. So I want that to be my legacy.
Yeah. And you know what? I feel like the more we talked, I feel like we talked about this film a little bit
Mhm.
after one of the workshops that I did at the Texas Theater. I'm sure we did now. It's all coming back to me. Well, and it is hard. And I've been saying for about 4 months now that I'm going to do a YouTube series on how to make your first feature film, and I've
Mhm.
just not gotten around to it yet.
Mhm.
But I'm
Mhm.
going to. I'm going to.
Yes.
Because it's a thing that you're talking from your experience right here. Once you make that feature, once you've made that feature film, it doesn't matter if anybody even sees it or not, right? The fact that you accomplished it, that you put in the work and the time to make the feature and finish it, that
Yeah.
makes all the difference in the world, because
Mhm.
it's a minor miracle just to get it done.
It is. It is. And in the early stages too, to be honest, another part that I experienced working in Atlanta and other cities is they really weren't taking people in Texas seriously.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, yeah,
when I was saying these different things, that I wanted to accomplish, it was like, well, but you're in Texas. You need to go to LA. You need to be in
yeah.
Atlanta. But I knew I wanted to do it here. And to see so much that has changed now for us to be on the map in a major way now
Oh,
is
it's
just
coming, man. It's coming. Like when they're talking about that $500 million incentive possibly, and maybe a 30%.
wow.
If that happens, and we'll know by May of 2025,
Whew.
if that happens, mark my words,
Mm.
Texas will be number 2 in the country behind Georgia, and we'll take aim at Georgia and see what we can do to get.
Oh my.
And I'm telling you,
Oh my.
that is what is going to happen. It's there's demand. I'm having conversations with,
Mm,
I won't say what studios, but
mhm,
think of the big 4 studios, one of those big 4 studios, and they want to come to Texas and shoot. Everybody wants to be there. The
mm.
state just needs to line those things up to, incentive wise for it to give them a reason to.
Wow, Tony, that's phenomenal news. We need that. We're hungry here. Everyone is hungry. Even the Southside Studios. See the energy. You saw how many people were
Oh
there.
yeah.
I was glad to be a part of that experience, man. And that's just we just got to keep going and have that faith, and it's all going to happen. I really
Yeah,
believe
no.
it's in the air.
That's good. And
Mhm,
so I have a question specifically on Mr. Gates. I'm looking at the IMDb and I'm looking at some of the actors on there, and
mhm.
Vic Minona,
Oh
who
yeah,
who is in your film. So uh, and his thumbnail for his picture on IMDb
mhm.
is as Captain Kirk, because
Yeah,
he had this YouTube series called Star Trek Continues that I discovered years ago, however many years ago it was, and that thing was freaking awesome. I was a
yes,
1960s Star Trek fan growing up, and
yeah.
I supported their Kickstarter for that too. When they were making more episodes,
Oh
and
wow.
so I see that, and it's like, did you build a relationship with Vic from being shooting some in Atlanta? Because I believe he's Atlanta or Georgia based, and man, anybody who's a Star Trek fan that has not seen Star Trek Continues, find it on YouTube. Amazing, love that show.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, no, actually I was introduced to Vic from a friend and did not know he was staying here in Carrollton in Carrollton for at the time. And
Oh, really?
man, we hit it off. Uh, he's actually every time we talk, he's like, Daz, I want to work again, man. I want to work. And Vic is awesome. Energy was just great. His scene is whew, he has a really nice scene in the movie, and he did his thing. I look forward to working with him, and just to be able to have someone like Vic in the movie was huge. And then even with Harthorne James,
Yeah,
from Speed and Five Heartbeats, and his work in Frasier, I was just blown away that this is happening. That I'm able to really reach out to these actors, and they love the story. That was the big thing for them, was that, man, this is different. There's, to see guys fighting against human trafficking this way. And I wrote the movie Mr. Gates. I want to keep people on the edge of their seat.
yeah,
So watching it, you see how the movie moves. It just, I have to have that movement. I have to have elements where I give the environment and the room time to breathe. So you feel as though you're there and you have that connection. It's just so many things that I want to be able to establish as a really good, well-rounded director and writer. But when they read the script, and they just fell in love with it, and that's one of the biggest things as a writer that we look for, is, man, that does a lot to us, and it gives us that validation.
yeah. So are you still on your festival run now? Are you still playing film festivals?
I am. We just finished the Denton Black Film Festival. Now we're moving to San Antonio.
Nice.
It was just submitted for that, and then the ABFF in Miami.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
submitting to that one next as well. Mhm.
Good, good. And so what's the distribution plan? That's always the hard part, right? Well, it is hard and it's not hard, right? Like you made the movie
Mhm.
and it's done and it's playing festivals and it's doing great. But then distribution. And anybody who's listened to this podcast has listened to me talk about financing and distribution. And if not, you can go back to the previous episodes, and there's full 90 minutes talking about financing and distribution and how all that works. How is
Mhm.
that process going for you, and what are you looking at? What are you considering for the film?
To be honest, it's rough. Um, so much has changed in the industry. Um, I actually just had a chat with someone from Netflix yesterday,
Oh, nice.
with their in the finance department. So I've been talking with them since maybe October, and so I knew that as the year was ending that we were going to pick that up this month. But I'm I've talked with stars. I've talked with I'm still working to get to Apple TV and a couple others networks. But I do want to make sure I get some assistance with that. I have an attorney who's ready
Good.
on deck, but I'm needing to get more assistance with getting that established. And this is new to me. I know once I get this roadmap prepared, we're going to be nonstop. But yeah, I think that I just want to make the right deal. I want to
Yeah.
make the right decision. I don't want to move too hastily. There's so many filmmakers. They kind of jump on deals. And I want to do my film justice because I did invest so much. There
Yeah.
is so many people involved. So I'm making sure that I take my time, make the right decision, because I know once people see it, the reaction has been just bananas.
Yeah.
We got a standing ovation in Denton
Nice.
after the screening, and the film is just I really believe in it, and it was my baby, but I have 13 other films in my pipeline.
You always have to, like,
Yeah.
when you pitch somebody a project and they're like, "Ah, well, that doesn't work for me. What else you got?" You always got to have a "what else you got." Always.
Exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
writing along the lines of just to kind of give an idea of some of Jordan Peele's work mixed
Hmm.
with Black Mirror. So that's kind of the angle of my next couple of projects are taking. But a lot of people want me to turn Mr. Gates into a series.
Yeah.
So that was one of the pitches that I did with Netflix yesterday was turning the film into a series and then also a production deal
Yeah.
because I want to be able to, I told him I have several films that are in series that are in my pipeline, and they're at an even higher, even better, fire that I'm bringing right now.
Yeah.
So
Have you talked to Tubi at all? Because I know Tubi's spending a lot of original money, or money on original projects and doing some things, and this seems like something that would be right up their alley. People think, kind of look down their nose a little bit at Tubi sometimes, but I'll tell you, there are filmmakers who make more money on Tubi than they do on Netflix.
that is true. So I've been talking with some aggregators at one point as well,
Hmm.
but I'm looking to kind of go directly to some of the networks as well too,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
just talk with them directly. So I'm looking for people who are really good at closing those type of deals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this actually has been so helpful because I'm able to understand what the terminology and the acronyms and what
Yeah.
things really matter when you're having these discussions, whereas maybe an aggregator would have been doing that and I wouldn't know anything. And I want to also make sure I'm getting the reports back. I want to be able to look at the data.
Hmm.
That's a big deal for me because I want to understand what genre, what performs, this way versus the opposite, and where do we stand? How are we performing? So those are some of the things that help me overall. The same way I'm pulling analytics from these festivals. I want to understand, what is the viewership like?
Yeah.
How's
Have
the
you been have you been able to attend most of the festivals that the film is screened at? Oh,
I have.
yeah.
I've made sure
Good.
to be there.
Good.
And I've done Q&A sessions and all to make sure that I could respond and kind of engage with the audience.
Good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're starting to run a little low on time. We could talk for another hour. This we could easily kind of keep this on going. Maybe we maybe we will at another point. But
Mhm.
you know, Desmond, anything you want to tell anybody that's listening before we wrap up today?
Yes, definitely check out Mr. Gates. It is on the IMDb under Mr. Gates, Mr. spelled out Mister. I just want to say thank you again for having me here, and then to the actors in the film, Mac White. These are a lot of the Dallas actors breakout movies as well too. So Mila McCoy did a phenomenal job. She has a great relationship with Mac in this film. Avante Perkins, this was her first film, and she has really made some major waves with being a part of this. Overall, just Dondega Films is we're here to stay. We have a lot more to come. Please join our journey. Follow us on social media under Dondega Films, as well as you can follow me, Des Donahue, Dehz Donahue. Donahue, and then Mr. Gates Movie on Facebook and Instagram, as well as Mr. Gates Film on Twitter X.
All right. Well, everybody rewind and listen to that, and make sure you mark it all down. Des, thank you for joining us here on the Dallas Film Dallas Film Podcast, if I can speak today, brought to you by Southside Studios Dallas. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much.